Hello, everybody. Welcome from wherever you are. This is another episode of the COVID Conversations. It is just a chat with some people who I hold near and dear to me, getting a little take on their lives and where they're at and what they're doing and how it's all affecting them from all walks of life. So with me to my left or right, this young lady. Well, she's not a young girl anymore. She's a young lady. This girl holds probably needs no introduction for a few of us, but for some of us, we may have not met her before. So this young lady is Charlotte Caslick. Charlotte Caslick, I first met, I think she was probably about maybe 3 or 4 or maybe even younger. And I started teaching the entire Caslick family martial arts from a very young age. But since then, Charlotte has gone on to much better things than martial arts, and she is currently in the Australian Women's Rugby Sevens team. She was in the Sevens team that won the gold medal in Rio in 2016. But I guess the big hurdle in Charlotte's life at the moment is she was meant to be going to Tokyo for 2020 Olympics, but obviously that's been put on hold. So she's just hanging out in Stanthorpe at the moment, where she has a bit of land with her fiance Lewis, who is also in the men's rugby sevens team. So they're on hold a bit, doing some farming stuff and just chilling while they wait for some major decisions to be made. But over to you. Hello, little fella. How you going?
Hello, I'm very good, thanks. As good as you can be in the circumstances.
That's it. We had a little chat off camera, but we'll get to it soon. We're all affected, but yeah, I mean, you're being affected is you are still hanging much in limbo, but we'll get to that later. But question number 1, I guess, the barbecue intro. Charlotte, g'day. My name's Kyl. What's your name and what do you do?
I'd probably say hello, I'm Charlotte. I play rugby sevens. Well, it probably depends on the barbecue. If I'm somewhere out in the bush, I might say I own a little cattle farm in Stanthorpe. But yeah, usually I just start with I'm Charlotte and I play rugby sevens, or I'm here with Lewis. We'll avoid us answering any other questions.
Do you you've always come across as quite a humble person. Do you have still this, I guess you'd say, an issue talking about yourself and what you do? Because you would, like you said, you do a lot of talking and you get interviewed a bit. Is there every now and then that you just want to go, can we talk about something other than football, or can we just, can we just have a chat about normal stuff?
Yeah, sometimes. But then again, I have to step back and say, on the weekend I was out in Glenmorgan, which is another 5 hours west from here. And this really lovely family came over and they were really passionate rugby people.
Yeah.
And so I need to, when I am in those situations, I love to talk about it because I love to hear that there are people in the bush that are still passionate about rugby and it's not dead out there. And I guess I would wish that Rugby Australia would commit more time and effort to helping people out there that are so passionate. But yeah, I do love to talk about it with them because I guess it's talking about anything with anyone that's passionate is awesome.
And you're, and in the same vein, quite rightly so, you've, what you've achieved hasn't come easy to you and you've had to work bloody hard to get to it. So in that vein, you're very proud of what you've achieved. So, it's something that, if the conversation starts, I remember keeping my kids were late from school the morning that the final got played in 2016, and I think the police were probably called for us for a noise disturbance. So you've achieved a lot. So are those times where you go this is great, you've got someone, like I said, you've got a family so willing to talk about it, before you know it, you'll just have spoken to them for half an hour about those sorts of things.
Yeah, and I guess the thing I'm probably most proud about after Rio was the growth of women's sevens, and especially in young, and just seeing how even those little towns that maybe couldn't field a 15-a-side team because they don't have that amount of people that can play, but they can easily field sevens teams, and seeing like the joy that they're getting from it, I guess that's probably what I'm most proud of. But in saying that, the growth of women's sevens around the whole world since 2016 has been incredible, and I think at the moment it's one of the highest growing sports still around the world, and especially in Australia.
Do you think it's because, I mean, you would assimilate it, I guess, to the sort of stuff Ronda Rousey did for women's mixed martial arts and just women's combat sports? You and your team, you know, have basically not just opened up a pathway, but you've got other, you know, and I've got two young girls who are in the same boat. They've realised now, I could actually, this is possible to do. I could do this when I get older. Whereas 10 plus years ago, it was a pipe dream. Is that something that I guess you're proud of having played a part in that?
Yeah, definitely. And you can already see like the girls below me, they're reaping the rewards from what the hard work that we put in, and even the girls that started like 5-6 years before me. Like unfortunately, when they were playing in their World Cup in 2011, I didn't even know it existed. So like we never got to watch them or anything. So yeah, it wasn't even a dream for me. It was sort of, I just didn't even know it was possible, and I didn't know that girls could play rugby at a high level. But to see the change in that, and I guess it's in like so many women's contact sports now, like the AFL and the Rugby League as well have really stepped up, and they've almost taken it to new heights, especially the AFL. They're running such an incredible job with their girls down south.
And I think, like you said, with the women's AFL, maybe they saw, you know, and again, we look at it from a moral point of view, but I mean, people like the AFL have looked and gone, there's actually a heap of people watching this. It's credible. It's being followed. Okay, this is even more worth doing now. And again, like you said, it flows downhill. It filters up a pathway.
Yeah, and I think just the fact that young girls now have a choice is awesome. Like they're not getting told, oh, you're 5 years old, go play netball, or you know, they can look up and say like they can choose from rugby league, rugby sevens, like 15-a-side rugby, AFL, cricket. All these male-dominated sports are now so openly available for young girls too.
And I guess the final thing before we move on to find out a little bit more about you, it was I mean, you do come, and I've known your family for 25 plus years. You have got a little bit of a pedigree there, I guess you'd say. You know, the old man was a bit of a rugby league player in his time, and then you've got both your brothers are both very athletic, so it was a, you know, progression for you. But at the same time, I've heard a couple of interesting stories about you getting dumped on your butt a lot down on the beach over and over again, trying to cut your teeth because you came from a sporting background, but just the concept of tackling was something that was very, very new to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I was maybe like 5 or 6, I was an awesome little tackler when I joined in with the boys at Taylor Bridge on Friday nights. But yeah, from probably like 8 years old, I would never have even thought twice about tackling someone. Like I just wasn't for me. And then I guess when I started playing, I was really good at the ball skill stuff, and that came so naturally to me and so easy. But to have girls that were twice my size running at me, I just didn't see the fun in that. But I think it taught me a really big lesson about working on your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And just like being persistent and determined to overcome it. It wasn't, I don't think I was scared. I just wasn't really like committed.
It was a new world. But
yeah, I think, I don't know, when you're doing contact and you've got to commit 100% to running into a collision harder than the person that's running you, is when you sort of nail it.
Because there would be times, and there was a couple of times you've come off second best, like playing professionally. But do you look back at those? And I guess tell us the Tell us your version of events very quickly. The episode of down the coast, was it on the Spit, where you just said to the boys, just go out at me, and it just was there was a few tears and a lot of sand in your mouth and that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's happened a few times, even at training now. I'm sure any rugby fans would know Elliot Green. She's one of our girls that plays on the wing, and she's a absolute beast. Like, she's genetically like one of the most impressive people that I've ever seen. And there'll be at times at training where I'm like, Ellie, you can just run at me. And like, she doesn't run at me softly ever. And then so we're probably there for 10 minutes and I get put on my bum about 10 times before I can actually tackle her. But I figure if I can tackle her, I can tackle anyone. So yeah, I kind of enjoy budding up with her and trying to, practice with the best, because then, yeah, it just makes me better.
I guess it keeps you humble too. I mean, not to say you've got an ego, but like you said just then, if I can wear her, then I can wear anybody. And that probably for you guys that will always, you'll need to constantly be aiming to improve, because I mean, without blowing a little bit too much wind up the proverbial, you have been very successful at the game. So I'm sure when the other girls run on the field, they're after you. So you need to make sure that you're on your game as much as you can be.
Yeah, definitely. And I try to focus on myself a lot more than I do the opposition. But 100%, like if I can keep bettering myself, and even when I'm tackling Ellie, I might miss her 8 out of 10 times, but the 2, we probably learn more from those 8 than I do from the 2 that I make on her.
Yeah, exactly. But so back to the barbecue. So when you're not playing rugby around Australia and around the world, what else do you do, Charlotte? I said you were in Stanthorpe before. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Lewis and I bought a small piece of land a few years ago in Stanthorpe, which is where my dad grew up. So Dad and Mum have helped me and Lewis out heaps, especially through the drought when we were training. They were here a lot of the time feeding our cattle, but we've got about 70 breeders now, and hopefully when we finish rugby we'll be able to set up a nice little stud farm, and we breed Speckle Park, so it's sort of like a new-ish breed in Australia that's becoming a lot more popular, but we're kind of ahead of most people in the way that Lewis's grandparents have been doing it for a long time with that breed. So we have, some nice insights.
So Lewis Holland, your fiance, you've been with him for many years now, but he's a country boy as well. Is it something that you were, like I said, Don, your dad, is from Stanthorpe originally, but for you, is it something that you've kind of been progressively drawn into? Because again, I would look at you on the rugby field, and then I would look at you, on your Instagram. There's plenty of pictures of cows and stuff up there. It's a very stark contrast.
Yeah, it is, and like the lifestyle from Sydney, where we train for rugby, in comparison to out here, is very different. But at the moment, I think I'm getting the best of both worlds, which I love. But yeah, I never imagined myself. If you asked me when I was 10 if I was going to be a professional rugby player and a cattle farmer, I never would have expected that. So, Lewis is really passionate about it, and I guess I've just supported him and wanted to help him follow his dreams with it. And then, I've just grown to love it. Like, I love being out here, and I love animals. So,
is it a good reset button for both you guys? Like you said, it's a lot different from is it Northern Beaches that you train usually most in that area?
I was on the Northern Beaches for about 5 years, but we've moved to the eastern suburbs now, so I'm in Randwick.
So I mean, that's opposite ends of the earth. So for those who are watching and don't know, Stanthorpe is about probably 3 and a bit hours westish of Brisbane, and it's a very stark contrast. But is that reset button for you? Like you come out here and go, I can officially just duck off the planet for a little while.
Yeah, it's awesome. And like I love the people out here, and I guess the sense of community is really similar to what you would get in a rugby team. So in that aspect, it's quite similar with that. But yeah, just like the traffic in Sydney drives you mad. So it's lovely to get out here and be able to drive around freely, and yeah, it's nice. I guess in another way, it's taught me a lot about perspective, and especially when we went through the worst of the drought last year, and have a lot of close friends also now that are in the industry. Yeah, and it taught me a lot about just the perspective of how good we've got it down in Sydney. For some of our girls that just get to play rugby for a living, which is most people's dream, just to run out there with your friends every single day. And then you'd come back here and just see the heartache that people were going through with their animals. And I guess the way the press sort of makes out that farmers should have been prepared for what was to come. And then that's all changed now with this COVID-19, and people couldn't even last 2 weeks apparently without getting help from the government.
Yeah.
Where some of these people out here, went 8 years and didn't see a cent from the government of support because they should have been prepared apparently for what was coming.
I mean, it's just part of that living in that environment. And I guess for you, we might be branching into other questions, but anyway, I think the other thing that I took from that is you would come home, and not to say you get mobbed or whatever, but you're a pretty well-known face on social media platforms and sporting platforms. You just go down the road in Stanthorpe and people are just like, "G'day, how you going? G'day, how you going?" Like they know who you are, but you're one of the community there, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they don't usually, like some of the kids will stop and ask for a photo, which is nice, but yeah, most people just will be like, "Do you play footy?" And then I say, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, that's awesome." And then they'll just keep walking. They don't really, they just sort of accept it and move on.
That's great. I mean, that would be good. It'd be good to have that reset button. So the next question, what is, and I guess this would be a really good one for you because, there would be a lot. What are you passionate about?
It's quite a wide range of things I think I'm passionate about. I obviously love rugby and sport in general, mainly football codes. And like I'm passionate about growing that, and especially in the bush now, I'd love to see Rugby Australia make a much bigger effort to try and connect with people on the land and just in rural communities. I think there's so much more to offer that we're missing out on.
I mean, without getting pulled into a political conversation, you would love to see more effort maybe put into the country areas of all codes of football as opposed to maybe a little bit too much on the cities.
Yeah, and I get rugby league's probably a bit better at connecting with the bush. They like go out and play a lot of games out there, and a lot of country towns love rugby league, so they automatically have that win over the people, I guess. Whereas with rugby, there's probably just not as much effort, like some of the kids from the bush will go to schools in the city and play rugby while they're there, but I don't think we do enough in the way of sending our higher players out to visit and just go visit the kids out there and give them the same opportunities that the kids in the city get.
Do you feel when you you are only 25, but there will become a point where you may be getting a bit long in the tooth for rugby, or the body might be saying, I think we need to call time out. Is that something that you think you might like to be involved in when that progression in your career happens?
Yeah, 100%. I'd love to. And I think if I was living out here with Lewis, to be able to still do that and travel around and hang out with kids and stuff, that would be awesome. But yeah, I guess hopefully those opportunities do pop up when I finish. But I might be sick of it by then.
Is coaching something you would ever look at? Or are you more a player than a coach?
I don't know. I always thought that maybe I'd consider coaching.
Yeah.
Lewis is actually quite good at it. but I don't know. I've seen my coaches at this level deal with some pretty frustrating moments within girls, and they've kind of turned me off it.
It
So
would be incredible. It would be incredibly stressful. I mean, like,
yeah,
not to say being a player is an easy job, but you know, they carry, and again, from a coaching point of view, you carry a load and I guess a responsibility. And I mean, there's often that thing, if something goes wrong on the field, the first person to play, well, first person people look at is the coach, and they have to give an explanation. So I would
yeah,
imagine it'd be very stressful. And you would have seen it in the front line, you know, stuff you can't control, but they still need somebody to blame.
yeah, and yeah, the coach often does get that. But yeah, I think like I just at the moment, I don't know, my communication with girls is probably not up to speed if you're going to be a coach. They're a
Mm.
lot different talking to boys, and
Mm.
yeah, I really admire the way that my coaches have learnt to deal with some of the girls and different personality types, and
Yeah,
yeah, you've got to be a special person, I think, to be able to do it.
yeah, definitely. Is there anything else that Charlotte Caslick is incredibly passionate about that maybe we wouldn't immediately think of?
Um, well, I love fashion,
Mm.
but I wouldn't say I'm incredibly passionate about it. But yeah, I do, like, I enjoy following all my fashion bloggers on Instagram, and
Mm.
um, going shopping and stuff in Sydney, and dressing up for the events that I get to go to every now and then. But yeah, it's more just something that I enjoy when I get the opportunity.
But I'll put one in, and we spoke about it before. You have an incredibly guilty pleasure for country music, and you've logged myself and my kids onto some certain stuff. Is that something that it's always been there, or it's festated due to your time in the bush and that sort of thing?
Um, yeah, probably not always been there. I think Dad would have listened to a bit of country music, but
Yeah.
not the same music that I listen to. Um, he'll only ever listen to ABC radio, but when my playlist's on, he actually like lets me listen to it for a good few hours on the way out until I get over it. Um, but yeah, probably more because of Lewis, and then a lot of our friends and stuff now are all interested in it, and I think it's one of those music genres that people like to pay out a lot on, but once they start listening to it, they kind of like get addicted.
Totally. I totally agree. For me, and I have more than my share of friends that will be very quick to give me shit about it. But same, I grew up listening to it. I find if I stick on country music, I will instantly just feel a little bit better about the world, even though a lot of it is about, you know, sometimes it's about heartache and that sort of thing, but there just seems to be some sort of thing that just makes you feel better when you listen to
Yeah, I find that too. Even when I exercise, a lot of our team still listens to country music,
it.
because I don't know, it just kind of eases you and you can feel comfortable, and
Mm.
yeah, there is something about it, and I guess they sing about things that are relatable to a
Mm.
lot of people, so you can connect with the music a bit.
I love running to it. I find it just has a real sort of just feel good, and you just before you know it, you can just run so far just listening. It's just
Yeah.
it just captures you. But it was one thing I wanted to mention because I've seen more than enough shots of you at CMC and all the rest of it, and that's another one that was gone this year. So that's another thing we've lost to COVID-19.
Yeah, that was a real bummer. We were all about that. It was a week of the close, like everything closing down too. We just missed out. But yeah, Lewis and I have been to a few country festivals in America as well.
Yeah, that'd
Um,
be awesome.
so yeah, I don't know, we love going to them. They're awesome fun.
That's great. All right. Now, I'm not sure how it's been interesting to interview people who about this next question, but I guess this is something that you maybe had to put a bit of thought into. What is on Charlotte's bucket list? Because you've probably achieved a lot more than maybe other 25-year-olds, but is there still something left to do?
Well, I'd love to go to 3 Olympic Games.
Mm.
That's one of my goals. And then obviously that's sort of changed a little bit now, but I think that's still possible for me.
Yep.
I'd love to drive around Australia away. Go to Stagecoach in America, which is a country music festival. It's always on like during the middle of our season.
Yeah.
So, that will probably have to be post-retirement from rugby. But yeah, that's sort of the main ones. I don't know. I should probably set some more goals.
I don't know. I mean, but on goals and bucket lists, probably two things. The first one, do you ever, I'm sure you do you ever sit back and go, like you said before about, I didn't think this amount of years ago I'd be doing this and this. In that sort of same vein, do you ever sit back and just go, how fucking good is this? Is this really happening? Like when you ran onto the field in Rio for the final, did you do yourself the favour and stop for a moment and just go, I am here, this is really happening?
Kind of. I can't really remember it. It's a bit of a blur, the whole lead into the final. Like I can remember it obviously, but like not much detail around it. Even when we finished and stuff, it's sort of a bit of a blur. And I think I've only watched the game back maybe once, but it was more sort of at the start. I dropped the ball off a kickoff, and I was like, "Oh no!" So I remember those moments a little bit more, being like, but yeah, I don't know. I think after the semi-final when we won and we were into the gold medal match, we sort of all looked at each other and were like, "Whoa, this is awesome! Like, no matter what happens now, we're going to walk away with a medal." So, I guess that kind of just allows you to enjoy the experience and not put all that pressure on you, because we were, just happy to be in that moment and being given the opportunity to actually walk away with an Olympic medal, either gold or silver. Obviously, gold's way better, but yeah.
I mean, like you said, just to be there, no matter what happens, like we're here, we're doing this, and like you said, it's not only that whole progression, and even that game was something that I guess paved the way, I guess, for a generation to come. Like you said, there's now kids that were, younger than you, like you said, when you were back at Taylor Bridge Rugby, just tackling the boys. That's now not just, I'll just do this for a bit of fun. This is, I could make something out of this.
Yeah, and it's become normal, I guess, which is the best thing about it all. Like, I get, like, on the weekend again, like, we had some young boys out that play rugby at school, and I reckon when I was in high school, if I started playing rugby with them, they all would have been like, piss off, you're a girl, play rugby. But now they want to play with us, and they're like, are almost in awe of us just as much as young girls are, which is really cool. It's just become normal for them, and they've grown up now watching girls play rugby and contact sports.
Yeah, and I mean, you've cut your teeth and you've done that much. And I mean, I guess the next question is, do you now, with your, probably on a bucket list point of view, do you feel, like you said, you've got we were talking earlier about, some younger girls that are now coming through to the side and that sort of thing. Do you try to look back, and even though, again, your age, you've still got a vast amount of experience in the game, do you look and go, sit down and go, don't do this because this is what I did, and if you do this, and you're trying to help them already get maybe a little bit more progression so it just gets stronger and stronger?
Yeah, in a way, but at the same time, I encourage a lot of the young ones to still live their lives as they can. They can't just put everything into rugby, and because I feel like by the time they get to my age, I'll be completely burnt out and over it.
Do you feel that's a mistake a lot of professional athletes make? Have you seen people do it?
Yeah, I think it's sort of like depends on your personality type as well. Like people are so happy just to do the one thing and be content with that, whereas I do like to encourage the girls to still go and see their friends, and you can still be involved in all of that sort of stuff in a smart way and not you're missing out on all the time, because they get to 23, 24 and then just go, oh, I've missed out on all of this, so now I'm going to do it. Whereas yeah, I kind of believe that they should be able to still be kids while they're kids.
Because you've played sport, I mean, I guess at an elite level, not just in sevens like you are. You had a hockey stint, and then there's a touch football. Like you played touch footy at a young age as well, and that was at a high level. Is that always been something that's important to you? Like, and again, the bucket list is trying to get all this stuff done, but you still need to have a life as well. It seems to be something maybe you've been pretty good at balancing it all.
Yeah, I think I have been pretty good at balancing, and um, I've probably been lucky that my parents have always been pretty, I guess, like they let me do my own thing a fair bit. And
Mm,
um, I moved to Sydney when I was 18, away from my family, so I probably had a fair bit of freedom
mm-hmm.
in that sense as well. But yeah, I guess I've always, any sport that I've ever done, I've always wanted to be the best at it. But I think I've enjoyed all the small moments along the way as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess the last thing is really the COVID and the situation. We had a little talk of before I started recording, and I told you to speak freely, and I got a little bit more of an accurate answer. It would be, really. I mean, obviously, there's the stuff that's real in society, and we recognise that. But you're looking at it from a different point of view. How is it? How is it for you at the moment?
For us at the moment, we just have like no clarity around when we will go back to training together. We have no idea when our next tournament will be. And I guess the fact that we do play in a World Series, so we need to wait for countries like America and England and all the European nations to be healthy and ready to go as well, because I can't see them letting people all join into a tournament from 16 different countries if people are still battling
And that's a really
the
good
virus.
point. I mean, it's not
Um,
just Australia; it's the rest of the world, and you can't really play an international tournament until everybody's ready to go.
yeah, so yeah, at the moment we have no idea when that will be, which is, I guess, for professional athletes, usually we turn up to training at 7 a.m. We have a full calendar of what we're doing that day. Our coach gives us a training session. Our gym sessions are written for us. We get our lunch given to us. Like going to school still. So for us, it's sort of all this uncertainty is very different to what we used to.
Yeah,
And we don't really have that routine that has always been there. But um, I guess there's some positives out of it. You can do some training on your own and do other different things and try different stuff out that you might not get to do while we're with the squad. But yeah, I guess uncertainty is probably the biggest factor, and where our whole program will be in 6 months' time, we have no idea.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
You get you would, like you said. I mean, there is that uncertainty, but like for you, I mean, I've spent a bit of time with you know, professional athletes and that sort of thing, and I think for you guys, maybe there's a misconception also. Well, that, like you said, you've just, you know, you've got all this money coming in and you're doing well and everything like that. I mean, essentially, if you can't play sport, you can't do your job. If you can't do your job, you can't get paid. So you guys are like everybody else. You're sort of going, well, what do I, there is that so much uncertainty. And again, it is, take it all out. It is a job. So you can't work at the moment.
Yeah, so we recently just got given a 60% pay cut.
Hmm.
Um, some people obviously got less and some got more depending on how much you earn, but they kind of worked around that. So most of my team would now just be on the JobKeeper payments, but there's still, I guess, a lot of people that are on JobKeeper at the moment don't have to work.
Hmm.
They've technically been stood down, whereas our girls are still expected to train as much as they can full time by themselves.
And that's
And like,
different, isn't it? Like that's different. A lot of people. I mean, and it's again not to say anyone's worse off than anyone else, but like I said, there is probably a misconception with you guys, but you're affected financially as much as anybody else.
yeah, definitely. And I guess we don't really have any control over when we can play again and when Super Rugby clubs play again. So the financial position that Rugby Australia is in at the moment isn't great, even prior to this COVID situation. So, yeah, we're sort of hoping that Super Rugby might kick off by the end of the year, but if it doesn't and if no rugby teams get to play again, yeah, we could be even in a more worse off position than we are now.
Yeah. And do you sort of see, I guess before we look at the positives, just do you see a little bit of the whole everything we've worked for is kind of starting to crumble around us a little bit? You know, how long is it going to take to rebuild and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I guess we don't really know the repercussions of what's happening now, like what it will be like in a year's time. I'm sure things are going to stay the same as what they were prior. So that's sort of a bit scary. But I guess in the rugby sense, like would have had a handful of girls that were going to Tokyo and it was going to be their last tournament and they were going to finish on a high and retire, go move on to the rest of their lives, and whether that's starting to have a family or a job in wherever they want to work. Now that's just been completely changed.
Yeah.
And I guess some of them have to make the decision whether their bodies can hold on for another 12 months longer than they expected them to. But then if you're an 18-year-old girl, you get a whole nother year of training full time and yeah, so in that sense, it probably has benefited some of the younger girls within our group to put their hand in Tokyo. But I think everyone's situation is just completely different.
Yeah, like you said, everyone's affected in their own ways, and you guys have even just been told, you know, oh, well, it'll be on in 2021, but you haven't been given a date, so there's still no timelines or anything like that. So, yeah, there is a massive, massive wave of uncertainty, and I guess you would get those people, even people watching this, who would go, "Oh, it's just a game," and you go, "Well, it is, but we've also, some of you, you know, you've invested 4 years of your life getting into this, and now you go, oh, there's always next year." And you sort of go, okay, well, it's just not that easy, because mentally it would affect you a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I've always sort of wanted to put that perspective on and be like, you know what, it is just a game. So it doesn't make it suck any less. Sort of just like, I know it's just a game of footy and it's just the Olympics, and at the end of the day, we are just an entertainment purpose, but it still sucks. And I guess even for, like, obviously CMC getting cancelled and all the country music singers I follow, like, none of them are working at the moment. They're all just at home doing nothing, and that sucks too for them. Like, I see them and I'm like, their dreams of touring and whatever have just been ripped away.
Yeah. I've got a good mate of mine from the entertainment industry. He had to join the dole queue for the first time in 37 years. He's a techie, and he just said his entire year is just gone. So yeah, it's very interesting to see how everyone's been affected, and I think, yeah, there would be, you know, not general, maybe generally speaking, but there would be those people that, like you said, it is just a game, and you can have that attitude, but it's so much more to you. Like you said, back to the barbecue conversation, you go, I play rugby for Australia. So that's when people ask that, yes, that's what I do. And I can't do it at the moment. So yeah, it affects you, it affects us all.
Yeah, definitely. I hope, I guess, at the end of it all, people might start filling stadiums up again and,
yeah,
you know, coming out to watch live sport because they might appreciate it a little bit more.
Do you think, so that moving into, I guess, any of the positives, what do you hope, or what's the Charlotte Caslick hit prediction post COVID?
To be honest, I have no idea. But I hope we're back touring next year. I hope that our Rugby Sevens program still exists in some capacity and we can still train together and finish off. Oh God. Finish this, you know, goal that we all set together 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And hopefully tick that off in 5 years now, and that some of those older teammates that I have do hold on for it. But in the same thing, I'm really excited for the younger girls and the opportunity that they might get now. And I think our team as a whole, it's going to be quite beneficial for us because we, I feel like we were sort of still about 12 months off really peaking as a group.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about that, and I think it might end up being better for us playing a bit later.
Do you think, like you just said before, you hope more people get out and watch a game of footy? I know we went out yesterday, like I had to go to a physio appointment, and, I was in the valley, so we went to New Farm Park and just sat in the park for a while, and it was such a big deal because it was the first time we'd really been out in, 5 or 6 weeks. Do you think people may, or you hope people will be more inclined to go out and watch a bit of live events, watch some live sport, and just see that, open up the floodgates again a little bit?
Yeah, I hope so, because I think that was really diminishing, was people going to watch live sport because you could sit at home and watch it on your TV just as easily, whereas hopefully everyone's sick of watching TV like this and does want to come out and support it, and I think that would make a massive difference for all of us as well, for us to get back to where we were.
And I guess, it's all the other feelings that you have when you're at a live event, the smells, the sounds, everything in between. It's so much different to a broadcast.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think hopefully, it just becomes something that people want to do again.
Do you think, can you see maybe more kids wanting to get involved in sport post-event? Do you think maybe that's something hopefully that will happen?
Yeah, I reckon. I know that a lot of kids I've spoken to are very bored at home without their PE lessons and without seeing their friends and all of that at sports. So, yeah, I definitely think that we'll have kids signing up to be involved.
Yeah. So do you think maybe there might be an opportunity for more of, not necessarily coaching, but, like you see how the origin teams, and I know you've done it with the sevens teams, the mentoring, and you're traveling around doing little appearances and that sort of thing. Do you think that's something that you hope that the rugby codes get involved with and try and bring people out of their houses back to playing a bit of sport and moving again?
Yeah, I think so. And I guess if we're not playing any tournaments, we'll have plenty of time to come and help with that. So it could be a win-win.
Excellent. Look, I'll probably finish it up there, but I do want to say, and I guess it's something that I've probably purposely left till the end, without I guess getting too much into it. It's always been such a pleasure and just so good to see how you have progressed. I won't get into it, but we spoke very briefly about the argument you and I had when you were 4 years old about doing the push-ups. And it just flowed on from there. You said you actually don't mind push-ups now, but it's more that you don't like. It's been really good to see not just, you progress, but how much you guys have done it as a family. Like to see, I don't know if there's too many tournaments that your mum and dad have not gone to as punters. It's been a real family affair, and I think that's quite admirable. So I've always loved watching what you do. I've definitely probably fanboyed a little bit of stuff, and I've become watch rugby sevens. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't have watched rugby sevens much had you not been playing it. But having said that, I really like watching the game now. It's I find it to be a really fast game, and those people who know me well enough know that if I'd get nervous just thinking about catching a football. So I recognise punching someone in the face. However, I'm quite happy to do that. It's been really good to see how much you have done for the game, how much it has progressed the game. You have stayed pretty much with your feet firmly on the ground. You've accepted that it's not the be all and end all. But I really want to thank you for taking time out of your hectic Stanthorpe schedule to do this interview. But yeah, Charlotte Caslick, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. So guys, if you would like to follow more of these, this interview will be up very soon. You can go to my YouTube channel, which is just Kyl Reber. It's very simple. And you can follow the COVID conversations there. It's a great opportunity for us to maybe just hear somebody else's take on it. And I've had some very good feedback from people already about that exact thing. Charlotte, thank you. It's been a pleasure. And I will hopefully see you maybe face to face, and you can come and do some fancy skipping stuff in my shed sometime soon. Thank you.
Thanks. Sounds good to go.